Well, the media rise to the rescue of yet another Democrat campaign. Recall in 2008, when the revelation of Reverend Jeremiah Wright threatened to derail Barack Obama's candidacy, the mainstream media, except for Fox News, tried to suppress it. Same thing right before the election. You had that bombshell story from the New York Post about Hunter Biden. The media called it Russian disinformation. Now, you remember when Donald Trump Jr. met with that Russian national? The media went absolutely bonkers. Why, the man was practically a Russian asset.
Tonight, what Donald Trump Jr. knew and when he knew it in black and white. On June 3, 2016, a trusted associate emails Trump Jr. that one of Donald Trump's former business partners had been contacted by a senior Russian government official and was offering the Trump campaign information that would incriminate Hillary Clinton and her dealings with Russia.
Donald Trump Jr. and this meeting with a Russian who some say has links to the Kremlin. How legally significant would that be?
Well, it's devastating to their narrative, Savannah, that they never met with any Russians and that they had no intent to collude with Russian government operatives to affect the outcome of the 2016 election.
The week is ending the way it began, with new disclosures about the president's son and his meeting with a Russian lawyer. It turns out at least one more person was at that session than previously known.
Now, when the New York Post story broke, you got literally the CEO of CNN, Jeff Zucker, conspiring with his chief legal analyst, David Chalian, to suppress the story, to confine it to the dustbin of Fox News and Russian disinformation. Thanks to Project Veritas, we have him on tape.
The Hunter Biden story was an explosive blow against Joe Biden leading up to the presidential election. But listen on this 9 a.m. editorial conference call at CNN, how President Jeff Zucker chooses to not cover this important story.
I think on the Breitbart, New York Post, Fox News rabbit hole of Hunter Biden, which I don't think anybody outside of that world understood last night, the Wall Street Journal reported that their review of all corporate records showed no role for Joe Biden on the Chinese deal. And yes, I do put more credibility in the Wall Street Journal than I do in the New York Post.
Obviously, we're not going with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden, and which seems to be giving its marching orders to Fox News and the right-wing echo chamber about what to talk about today. Obviously, Hunter Biden's lawyer is quoted in that New York Post piece, and we'll just continue to report out. This is the very stuff that the president was impeached over. This is the stuff that Senate committees looked at and found nothing wrong in Joe Biden's interactions with Ukrainians, and now having an email that perhaps there was a meeting with someone from Burisma is, it seems, Rudy Giuliani's sort of dream-a-vision of how to throw stuff at the wall in these closing days of the campaign.
Hey, Jeff, it's just David on the Burisma story, and we should be awfully careful about that, obviously. But I do think there's a media story of what in the world are Maggie Haberman and Jake Sherman doing, retweeting that story.
Notice David Chalian, the chief legal analyst of CNN, saying, this has all been looked at, and Joe Biden did nothing wrong. That is hardly the issue, although I think he very likely did something wrong. The issue is whether Joe Biden was being sincere, being honest, when he said he knew absolutely nothing about Hunter Biden's businesses, let alone that he had ever met any of his business associates.
Well, it's devastating to their narrative, Savannah, that they never met with any Russians and that they had no intent to collude with Russian government operatives to affect the outcome of the 2016 election.
Joe Biden said he knew nothing, absolutely nothing. Au contraire. Tony Bobulinski, a longtime business associate of Hunter Biden, came forward and had a press conference and said not only did Joe Biden know about his Hunter's businesses, that Joe Biden met with him, Tony Bobulinski. But I thought Joe Biden didn't meet with anybody.
Good evening. My name is Tony Bobulinski. I served as a lieutenant in the United States Navy with high security clearance. My father and grandfather both served for decades in our country's armed forces. Since leaving the Navy, I've been involved in various successful businesses, both in this country and abroad. I'm making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, and his son Hunter Biden in dealings with the Chinese. I have heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter. That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I directly dealt with the Biden family, including Joe Biden.
What? He met with Joe Biden? And Joe Biden knew about his son's business activities in Burisma? This is the same Joe Biden who's willing to fight anybody who says otherwise.
We know all about that crap. And he's no backbone, we know that for that. But you, on the other hand, sent your son over there to get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with gas or nothing, in order to get access for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he was. So
you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has proved that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take an IQ test, okay? Number one. Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it.
I didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
Again, whether Hunter Biden did nothing is one issue. Whether Joe Biden knew about it is a whole nother issue. And one more time, Joe Biden was adamant he knew nothing.
One thing that a lot of Democrats even do wonder about, and that is Hunter Biden, your son, was getting paid a lot of money to serve on the board of a Ukrainian energy company facing serious corruption charges. You were the vice president running point on Ukraine. The average Joe hears that and says, that sounds fishy. What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody...
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was, there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong. So look, if you want to talk about problems, let's talk about Trump's family. I mean, come on. This is... These guys are amazing.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
You know there's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong. You know that, but you keep asking me these questions. It's okay.
But Mr. Bobulinski says Joe knew plenty.
In late 2015, I was approached by James Gilliar, whom I had known for many years, about joining him in a deal which he said would involve the Chinese state-owned enterprise CEFC China Energy and what he called one of the most prominent families in the United States. I was informed first by Gilliar and then by Hunter Biden and by Rob Walker, who was working with the Bidens, that the Bidens wanted to form a new entity with CFC, which was to invest in infrastructure, real estate, and technology in the U.S. and around the world. And the entity would initially be capitalized with $10 million and then grow to billions of dollars of investment capital. After months of discussion, I agreed at Gilliar and Hunter Biden's request to become CEO of the entity to be called Sinohawk. Sino representing the Chinese side, Hawk representing Hunter Biden's brother Bo's favorite animal. And between February and May 2017, we exchanged numerous emails, documents, and WhatsApp messages concerning Sinohawk and its potential business. On May 2nd, 2017, the night before Joe Biden was to appear at the Milken Conference, I was introduced to Joe Biden by Jim Biden and Hunter Biden.
And did he say he'd been introduced to Joe Biden?
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it.
Well, it's devastating to their narrative, Savannah, that they never met with any Russians and that they had no intent to collude with Russian government operatives to affect the outcome of the 2016 election.
Really?
Really? Really?
Really?
At my approximately hour-long meeting with Joe that night, we discussed the Biden's history, the Biden's family business plans with the Chinese, with which he was plainly familiar, at least at a high level.
Really?
Really? Really?
Now, just how big a deal is the suppression of the New York Post Joe Biden, Hunter Biden story? According to the Media Research Center, it was a game changer. When voters were asked, are you aware of the story linking Hunter Biden's overseas business transactions to his father? 73% of respondents said they had heard about the allegations, but 27% had not, including 36% of Biden voters. Of those Biden voters, 4.6% say they would have not voted for Biden had they been properly informed, enough to change the outcome in Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, end of quote. Bottom line, the suppression of the New York Post Hunter Biden story enabled Joe Biden to win, just as the suppression of the Reverend Jeremiah Wright stories allowed Barack Obama to win. Now, even Jake Tapper of CNN calls Operation Warp Speed an unmitigated success.
And we should take a note, a moment, as we always have when discussing vaccine and Operation Warp Speed, that this is, putting aside all of the failures of the Trump administration when it comes to the coronavirus, and there are lots, this is an unmitigated success, and we should acknowledge that.
Yet when Tapper interviewed Joe Biden and asked Biden whether or not he credited Donald Trump with the rapid development of these vaccines, Biden would not give him credit, and Tapper didn't say squat. Tapper also asked Bill Gates, do you give Donald Trump any credit for this?
These vaccines were created and tested in record time, under a year. According to the data right now, they have a very high effectiveness, more than 90%. How much credit for the success do you think Operation Warp Speed and President Trump deserve?
Well, the mRNA vaccines, which the first two are, our foundation and others have been backing for quite some time. Now, Pfizer teamed up with BioNTech, a partner of ours, and did not take government money, so they, went out on their own. Moderna got money before there was an Operation Warp Speed, back when it was just called BARDA, and that money did help them take a risk because they're not a large company, and they got help on some of their trials work. So the U.S. R&D funding, which had been there for pandemics well before this administration, that was a contribution greater than any other country.
With all due respect to the late, great Alex Trebek, I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.